Hello, beauty pageant fans. My name is Ayce, and I am your correspondent with Contesera Pageantry. Today we have a very special guest with us. But before we begin, please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that we can continue to bring content like this to beauty pageant lovers all over the world. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our reigning Miss Laurel Canyon, Rose Rodriguez. Rose, how are you today?
I am doing well. It's a beautiful Saturday. Sun is shining, birds are singing, so cannot complain there. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It is a beautiful day in Los Angeles, and we are so lucky to have you with us today. And so before we begin, we'd love to get to know more about your beauty pageant journey. So can you tell us about that and how you came to be our current reigning Miss Laurel Canyon?
Yeah, absolutely. So my beauty pageant journey is I started probably a little bit later than a lot of other women. I was in my 20s when I started competing in pageants, essentially. It was something I was always really interested in doing. But when I was 12, my spine was fused for scoliosis. So that was something that I always assumed it was for other women, that having something like that, a spinal fusion, isn't something that you ever saw represented. And then when I got married as well, I kind of thought that this was something that I could enjoy from afar. But for me personally, that path wasn't available. And I was a full-time model in the fashion industry for quite a few years. I was working internationally, so I was surrounded by women that were competing. I was roommates with Miss Ukraine Universe, worked with Miss Mexico Universe, and Miss Australia. And so that was something I was always very surrounded by, that level of just the feeling of like positivity and female empowerment. They were very warm people that I just enjoyed spending time with. And so really seeing Miss Universe opening it up to married women, I realized that this is something I really want to do, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to have that capability to do so, especially as being able to represent the 12-year-old Rose, whose spine was fused and who was looking a little bit awkward and not quite sure of her place in the world. And so in a sense, I'm doing it for myself today, obviously, but also for 12-year-old Rose and for like that inner child and the other girls out there too, to be able to see that representation that they want and need to see on stage. Mm-hmm.
I think we all kind of have like an ugly duckling phase. And then we realize, especially with the people that you're surrounded with, that you were able to kind of interact with all these women, and their confidence, I'm sure, rubbed off on you. I think that's really great to hear.
Oh, absolutely. No, so that was something that having such a positive experience of being surrounded by the pageant world and the women that participate in it had me very excited about this opportunity to be able to participate in it myself and be able to share my own story and experience within that, because I would have loved that opportunity to participate in one of the teen competitions when I was younger, but it's oftentimes hard to take that jump if you already feel like that's not something that you will be represented in. And I probably should have participated when I was 14 and 15 and 16, but there's always a million reasons why teenagers talk themselves out of things, and if not now, then when? And I fully believe that, you already have the no, so you might as well jump in and have that experience.
Yeah, and I think in many ways it gives the opportunities for, people who have similar experiences, spine fusion, anything that they think is holding them back, to finally say that, well, it doesn't hold me back. It's something that I can definitely do. And so to hear that from you is really great. I also wanted to go back to the fact that I know Miss Universe in 2023 began to accept, married women, and you're currently married. Mm-hmm. And so tell me about that process. How has being married kind of affected your pageant journey? Like, has it been great having the support system, or have you ever viewed it as something that other people look down on?
I've never viewed it as something that other people look down on, simply because I don't mind if other people look down on it, because it's my story and it's my life experience. And I think that we're all here to learn and to try to make our small corner of the world a better place. So if somebody else is looking down on it, that's not my journey. This is my journey. I don't mind about your opinions on my journey, because it's not me. And I mean, my husband, he's been so supportive of me doing this, because I know Mrs. Pageants exist, and I have so much love and respect for the women that do participate. I follow quite a few of them. Hannah Wise, as Mrs. America, has been doing a fantastic job in her advocacy, going to different high schools and especially trying to reduce teens vaping. But I'm not at the point in my life where I feel that I would be able to compete fully in a Mrs. pageant. And so by being able to participate in Mrs. Universe, which I feel like their platform and the system itself is a much closer reflection to where I'm at currently in my life, I was very excited for. And my husband, he's in the entertainment and music industry himself as well, so he's no stranger to being out there on stage and putting on a show, really, at the end of the day. So I'm very lucky to be able to have such a strong support system, both with my family, my parents, and my brother, as well as my husband, too, as like, hey, no, you should sign up. Go out there, register, apply, like, just do it.
So having that support system has kind of helped you go for it, right? It's only been a plus for you, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And it's great because now I have somebody that's in my house that I can have practice interview questions with. Like, do you have 30 minutes?
Oh, that must be so fun when you're like, okay, 30 minutes, let's get some questions in. So that sounds really fun. So for our viewers that don't know, like, the progression that you're going to go through in your pageant journey, what does that look like? So now you're the current reigning Miss Laurel Canyon. So what are kind of the next steps, and what are you kind of doing to prepare for those next steps?
Yeah, so the next step is Miss California USA. That's August 8th through 10th in Palm Springs. I'm so excited. There's going to be some lovely time by the hot tub there for sure. And then after that is Miss USA. Miss USA, those dates have not been announced yet, but hopefully soon. And then after Miss USA, you have Miss Universe.
Of course.
So that's the full progression. And I believe in not just doing things to your best effort, but by doing things beyond your best effort and capabilities. So as far as preparing, I feel like almost every afternoon I'm doing something as far as practicing choreography and walk, trying to fit in at least 20 minutes of interview practice. I have a really good team behind me of quite a few different coaches that I'm working with, some in groups, some one-on-one, and just making sure that there's no one right answer as to how to win that crown. But everyone has their own insight, and I think it's important to be able to listen to that and find value from everyone else's experience, and then take that, what resonates with me, what makes sense, and use that to find my own story within it. And so I've really been using that as making sure that not every girl should have the same choreography. It doesn't work for the same body type or the same energy or what she wants to present. Is she more serious or sassy?
I love that.
The same thing for interview as well, too. You don't want to go in for California. There's 100 girls. You don't want every girl to answer every question the exact same way. And so really having that large amount of feedback from different coaches with experience within the system has been really helpful for me in making me feel prepared. So now that it's in August, I'm glad because I have even a few more weeks to prepare too.
We'll be rooting for you. I think we can make that pageant. I'm looking at our producer right now, but I think that's a pageant that we'll be rooting for you in Palm Springs, not too far from us.
No, that would be amazing. Yeah. I would love that.
Yeah, of course, we'll be there to kind of cheer you on. So
amazing, thank you. I look forward to it already.
You'll see us in the audience with our rose, with our little rose billboards.
I love that. Thank you.
So that's great to hear. In terms of, I know that there's a million different paths to kind of Miss Universe, to kind of going through the pageant system, and it looks like you have a kind of, you know who you are, right? You know your past, you know why you're doing this, and so we'd love to get to know more about that why, that advocacy part that a lot of Miss Universe title holders have had. So can you tell us about your advocacy and how that kind of connects to you and your pageant journey?
Absolutely. So to really boil it down, my advocacy stems from the idea that our differences make us stronger. In my current role, I work in tech sales at a startup, which is very male dominated. So there's been many situations where I have been the only woman in the room and very much having to not only explain why I belong there, but explain why what I have to say has value compared to my male counterparts. And so that's something that sometimes you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And okay, then I will work 5 times as hard if that means it. And especially in being able to pave the way for the women after me to hopefully not have to work twice as hard. As I know that the women that came before me had to work 8 times as hard. And so really through that, understanding our differences in our background and our experience is something I really see as a strength. And that ties so closely in as well to my own experience with scoliosis, having to carry a pillow and have a special chair in my different classes in middle school. I think middle school is a rough time for absolutely anybody. But when you have a special chair and a special pillow to support your spine, that's something that you end up feeling even more like the odd one out. So being able to make sure that other girls with scoliosis have that same representation and feeling seen and feeling empowered through that, but also other girls and people in general that don't have scoliosis, people that you feel like you just don't fit in, which I feel like is almost everybody at some point in their life for one reason or another. And that feeling of being seen and knowing that you can channel that into your own self as a force for productivity to bring yourself up and not bring yourself down.
I see that, right? That the kind of differences that we have really add to kind of the rich tapestry of who we are as people. So
absolutely. And I feel like California is one of the most diverse states in America as well. So I think that makes it all the more special to really highlight how differences I find to be really empowering. Life is a learning experience. So by being able to learn and not just hear, but listen to other people's stories and their differences and what got them to being able to be there and have that conversation with you, I find to be such a beautiful opportunity that in many ways is unique to California because there is such a high amount of diversity. I mean, in my own apartment building, there's so many different languages that are spoken, and I wish I could have dinner with absolutely everybody just to hear their story.
Yeah, I think everyone has, everyone comes with something, right? Everyone comes with something, and being able to kind of share it and have this platform that you currently have to kind of share who you are and what you want to accomplish is something really beautiful. So thank you for letting us, in. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to get to know you a lot better. So we're going to move on to our next section, which we call our yes, no, and maybe. And so I know our viewers are familiar with this format, but this format is our kind of quick fire questions where you'll have the opportunity to only answer yes, no, maybe. I know, it's a lot of pressure, but I think you could do it. And at the end, there'll be kind of 1-2 questions that I think I'd love to hear more about. A little more context, a little more color, so that we can get to know you better. So you ready?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to go here. And so we have these prepared. And to our viewers, every time we do this, we really do think about who we're talking to and if these questions will connect with them. And so let's begin. Okay, right. Is your marriage part of your strength in the pageant journey?
Yes.
Do you think joining a pageant should require a college degree?
No.
Do you believe the future of pageantry is novelty over tradition?
Oh, that's a really good one.
I know.
I can only say yes, no, or maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yes, no, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. We might revisit that one. Did you ever consider yourself an underdog in your winning pageant?
I'm going to say maybe. Can I add a clarifying answer to that?
Well, that's until the end.
Okay.
That's until the end. Okay. So we'll definitely, we have
Okay.
2 questions we want to revisit.
Okay.
Do you think pageants should focus more on advocacy than appearance?
Yes.
Have you ever felt like you had to dim your light for others?
Yes.
Is being a role model more important than being popular?
Yes. 1000%.
Do you believe your story could change someone's life for the better?
Yes.
Do you think contestants should choose between love or career?
It's not necessarily a yes. I feel that love is important.
Okay. So, yes, no, maybe. What are we thinking?
That would be yes. Yes to love.
Yes to love. Okay. Do you think you developed your emotional intelligence during your pageant journey?
Yes, definitely.
Is Miss USA ready to crown a married woman?
Maybe. And I want to say yes. They will be.
Would you challenge a rule you didn't agree with in the pageant world?
Yes.
Is joining a pageant expensive?
Very, yes.
Should Miss USA leave politics out of the question and answer?
No.
Should the Miss Universe organization consider screening for mental wellness?
Good question. I'm leaning towards no on that one.
Okay. Can pageantry be a platform for real change?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think non-traditional beauty pageant contestants, like those who are married or mothers, are often underestimated?
Without a doubt, yes.
Okay. All right. So those are our quick fire questions. I think we have maybe 3 questions we want to revisit. Okay. So we'll give you the floor. So I think our first question is, I think there was a little bit of back and forth with this one, but do you think joining a beauty pageant should require a college degree? And I think you answered no for this one.
Yes. I answered no. I don't think it should require a college degree because I feel that, again, everyone's journey is so different in life. I am very lucky in that I was able to get a college degree and that I was able to attend a college. Even in America, it's very expensive and something that is inaccessible to many people. And I've seen so many women become so successful in their own right without one. And I feel that having such a harsh black and white rule as far as whether that's required is you were cutting out the story and opportunity of so many women that a college degree, it shows that you were able to study and to dedicate yourself. It also shows that you were able to be in a position to do so. So for many women, that's something that they might not have had that same opportunity. And that's even more so when you look at an international scale in countries where university is even more inaccessible to the general population.
That's a good point, right? I think we're often very U.S.-centric, but then we have to think about other countries and, if education is also acceptable or accessible.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to highlight people that are in trades as well, where you have an apprenticeship or you get certifications, but not necessarily a college degree. I think a woman that is a lawyer has just as much right to compete as a woman that owns her own plumbing business.
Okay. That's some good, that's actually really great clarification there. And then I think our second question where I think that I'd love to know more as well is, so do you believe the future of pageantry is novelty over tradition?
I think that this is a very complex question because I think that what we consider tradition If I said that I believed that it should be tradition over novelty, I would not be competing in the universe system.
That's a good point.
But I believe with novelty at the same time, I think that the pageants are structured in a way to provide women with a platform to make real change. And so I feel like oftentimes we see, if we opt too close towards novelty, that can be stripped away and changed as far as making it more of a show or a performance, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong, I love to see that. But I feel like what pageants mean to me is giving women that opportunity for themselves and for the world around them. So I think that the answer is a little more nuanced and somewhere in the middle. I think that we need to embrace the novelty in the modern day in making sure that women that don't fit the traditional background have that access. But I think we need to make sure that we're keeping that same spirit of why pageants existed in the first place present within that.
So it's kind of this in-between space, this nice balance between the two. So definitely see that with your answer. Yeah. And I think our last question that I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on, because we've asked this before, with our previous interviews, and I think you said something a little different. So, should the Miss Universe organization consider screening for mental wellness? And I think you said no here.
Yeah, I can see the argument for why. However, I believe that eliminating women because of mental health can be a very slippery slope. And I believe, again, that Miss Universe represents and should represent every woman as far as making sure that you can see yourself in her, you can understand her platform and her want for change. Like, I find myself so inspired by Shanice Palacios, and not just what she did. She visited 20 countries during her reign, making herself so present on an international scale for countries where she'd never been to before or didn't speak the language, but also for her own people as well, and standing up for real advocacy and change. And I feel that you want to make sure that this is something that is open and accessible towards all women. So just because you have a diagnosis of a given mental health issue, I think being able to not compete because of that, it's a slippery slope. And it's the same reason why I thought I wasn't able to compete, because of my scoliosis.
So I think what we've seen through kind of your answers is that you don't want anyone left out to feel like you felt, right? That you couldn't be part of a pageant because of a potential physical or mental kind of handicap. And so we're kind of seeing you kind of explain that, I think, through everyone, that everyone gets the chance to participate in a pageant. And so seeing your answers through these lenses, really interesting. It really kind of shows your kind of thought process and where you're at. So I think that's amazing to kind of hear that you're all for giving a voice to women that have felt like they couldn't participate in pageants. So really cool to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was really fun. That was really, really interesting. But our next part is our Q&A part. So I don't know about you, but Q&A is one of my favorite parts in any beauty pageant, because it really gives the chance for the contestants to kind of, well, show us how fast they can think on their feet, show us their perspective, and show us if what they have to say is worth listening to.
Okay.
And so before we begin, we have some questions here from some former Miss USA questions. I think you've touched a little bit on this, but I'd love to hear more about how do you prepare for the Q&A part of a beauty pageant?
I prepare by practicing and practicing correctly.
Okay.
My grandfather, he told me, and that was something that was hammered into me from a very young age, that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Oh, okay.
It's like, if you practice something wrong 1,000 times, you're only going to know how to do it wrong. So you're perfect at doing it wrong, but nobody's going to care particularly because you're not doing it as it should be. I think we can all see that when we see somebody on stage and they aren't perhaps the best at their instrument that they're playing. And so I practice regularly, and not just in, hey, rapid fire questions, but let's get feedback. Where can I improve? Not just going through the motions, but genuinely making sure that I have time set aside to listen to myself again, to give myself feedback. If I was a judge, how would I rate myself? What was the high point? What was the low point? I love to talk. I do. I'm going to be honest there. So one of my main emphasis for myself is making sure that I can be very concise in what I'm speaking and what I'm saying, because they don't need the whole kitchen sink and yesterday's spaghetti. You know, you just need what's right there in front of you.
Yeah, there's this, I think that there's this idea of intentional practice, right? That you're kind of alluding to, that everything you do has intention, and that it isn't just kind of a scattershot approach. And so let's put that to the test.
Let's go.
So we have several questions here from former Miss USA contestants. And we'd love for you to pick out your questions. Okay. So you pick out your question, I'll read it to you, and then we have our producer behind the camera, and he'll set 30 seconds on the dot.
Let's
so you
go.
ready? Okay.
I think so. Okay. Stars
question.
aligning.
Okay.
Let's grab that question. Let's see.
Okay. Let's hand it over to me. So this question was asked of a contestant in Miss USA 2003.
Okay.
Do you feel that a woman is not fulfilled until she is a mother, and why?
Women have so many different paths in their life, whether that is being a mother, being stay-at-home, being a career woman, or whatever avenue she chooses to take in life, that I believe that being a mother is not directly related to any given woman's fulfillment, because women can have just as varied lives as men. So limiting it to whether or not she has a child, I feel like that's something that we would never do to a man, and that we should not give that same unfair expectation to women.
Okay. As a producer, 30 seconds. That was really great. I think we would never ask that question of a man, right? We would never ask, would you be fulfilled if you were a father? So that's a really good point to make. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So our second question.
Let's go. I'll close my eyes for this
one. All right. So this question comes to us from Miss USA 1993. If you felt the law was unjust, would you make a political statement to disobey it?
I think that political statements are so important as far as the rights that we have as Americans and that were given to us. Being able to be vocal and take a stand for what we believe in is quite literally written into the Constitution. That's how this country got started, was taking a stand against political laws and regulations that they didn't believe in. So I think that taking that stand is not only inherently very American, but something that we should do as citizens if we disagree with a law.
Okay. Wow. I think so. I think it's built into who we are as Americans.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is our final question. Are you ready?
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Last but not least.
So this comes to us from Miss USA 1991. If you could choose to live your life as someone else, who would you be and why?
My great-grandmother is somebody I would consider the greatest inspiration to me. She was born almost 100 years ago. She was 5'9", and she drove truck back when women were not really driving very much at all. She also became the first woman to own her own brokerage in her county. So as a business owner and somebody that was forever very independent, I would love to be able to live her own life experience, because I know that the journey of being an independent woman 80 years ago was significantly more different than today. So I'd love to be able to learn from that.
Wow. Okay. 30 seconds. Wow, that was really great.
Thank you.
So 3 questions down. I think you gave some really, really great answers and really great points. So Well, I think we can do one more.
Okay, I'm down. Let's go.
I think we can do one more. Okay, all right. So this will be our last question.
Okay. My coach is going to love this.
All right. So this comes from Miss USA 2005. What has been your greatest challenge, and what have you learned from it?
I think the greatest challenge for me has come from really feeling like I'm coming from an underdog perspective. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's not been a married Miss USA, and coming from the internal talk of, oh, with scoliosis, this isn't something you should be able to do. So I'm grateful for having a strong support system to be able to have not just myself and my own inner voice, but to be able to have a backing and army of people around me really promoting that and showing that I can use that as a platform for empowerment, because we're never alone with that.
30 seconds on the dot. So that does kind of, I know that final question really kind of, it delved into your advocacy, it delved into your reason why as you're doing all of this. And so I kind of see that thread through all of your answers, is that you have a reason why. And kind of just seeing these, I love Q&A portions. I think they're just such an interesting way to get to know someone, especially in that kind of like limited time that we have. So it's really great to hear.
Absolutely. No, I love that fourth question. I'm so glad that we did another.
Yeah. So that's great to hear. And so we'll kind of move on to our last part of our interview. And so for anyone wanting to get into beauty pageants, or, having this as a platform, what would you say? What would you say to them?
Do it. If you're not sure, obviously do your research first. Find which system is best for you, because beauty pageants are not cheap. You can make them more affordable, absolutely, but you have the dress, you have the makeup, you have headshots, you have the entry fee to the pageant to begin with. So do your research so you know what you're getting into, but do it, because, life is short, and for most pageant systems, you can only be of a specific age range to be able to compete. So to take advantage of that and that opportunity, I think is something that you just need to do, because the worst case scenario, you compete and you realize it's not for you, which is fine. And now you have this story of, hey, remember that time I competed in Miss Grand America, the time I, as Rose, competed in Miss California USA, or there's a million other different pageant systems as well for that person. So I believe in the importance of just trying things. If the door is unlocked, you might as well open it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I think that's it's a question that we, kind of regularly ask our interviewees, and a lot of them, say the same thing, like, do it, and see what that experience is like. And, for some of them, they might end up with a crown like you.
Absolutely. I believe strongly in don't live a life of maybes or what ifs. Live a life of, at least I tried.
Yeah.
I tried soccer for many years when I was younger. It wasn't for me, but at least I tried. Now I know.
I think for us who are not so inclined to sports, I understand.
No, I love track. I love volleyball and tennis. Sports where I'm in my lane, I'm on my side of the net and you're on yours, and we can go hit the ball back and forth that way, but just don't get up in my face.
That's funny. That's good to hear. So I think through this, so I know you're at you've just won the Miss Laurel Canyon. You're off to Miss California in the fall, and then from there potentially Miss USA, and then at the end, fingers crossed, you go through this journey and you're at the Miss Universe stage, right?
Absolutely.
So let's say at that time, you're crowned as Miss Universe. What's the first thing that you would do?
The first thing I would do is I would love to be able to try to bring scoliosis detection and scoliosis testing throughout schools on an international level. Back in the 70s, in the States, this was something that was considered fairly standardized. However, over time, through reduced budgeting and education and the general it's not a big deal, especially because scoliosis primarily affects women. It was something that was gradually phased out. And that was something that if there was that testing in schools, I might have had it detected earlier, so I wouldn't have had to have my spine fused. And I know the same thing is true for thousands of women internationally. So I believe that bringing awareness to what the signs of scoliosis are and bringing the testing into schools, like how it was back in the day, is something that would be so helpful for so many kids, boys, girls, and their parents as well. And it's not an expensive test. Really, oftentimes you're just checking the spine with 2 fingers. It's pretty easy to learn how to do.
I remember, I think it was in middle school when I received like the scoliosis. They it was in the locker room, and I think it was very simple as you're saying, right? They just kind of check, they do an eye, and then they do a little quick touch on your spine. And so I think having something like that, it could be very accessible.
Exactly.
For everyone. Yeah.
It's not expensive. It's easy to do, and it can make a lot of difference to a lot of families.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Rose, for sharing everything. And so I think we've kind of reached the end of our interview. And so we've gotten to know about you, your advocacy, your kind of history and your pageant journey. Is there anything that you would like to say to our Contesera audience? This is where you plug your socials. But anything else you'd love to say to kind of our audience? We've had such a pleasure, getting to know you. And so.
Absolutely. I would say, to start off, our differences make us stronger. We live in a digital world where we're more globalized than ever, but it's also easier to feel more isolated than ever from everybody else because you don't fit into this beauty standard or this expectation, or you don't look like this face-tuned version of somebody else's photo. So I believe strongly in using your differences to make yourself an advocate for the change that you want to see, not just in the world, but in yourself. Say yes to yourself because you're the first person that's going to ask the question before anybody else says yes to you. And outside of that as well, I am hosting a benefit concert for Shriners Hospital for Children on June 7th. Here in Los Angeles, it's going to be at the Den Studios. Everyone, you guys are all invited. I would love to see you there. Shriners Hospital is the hospital that fused my spine for me. They are very dear to my heart and a great organization. And I would love to see it be just a big happy event with live music and just good energy.
Thank you, Rose. Yes, thank you, Rose. So we've had such a pleasure getting to know our reigning Miss Laurel Canyon, Rose Rodriguez. It has been such a pleasure. Before we kind of sign off, I wanted to remind our viewers to please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that we can continue to bring content like this to beauty pageant lovers across the world. So this has been Ayce. With all my love, we hope to see you again. Thank you.